Let her rip, Amanda Schmidt!
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Outwit Outlast. I'm your host, Amanda Schmidt, and this is my dad, Geoff Schmidt.
Yeah,
Hey, Dad.
I love that. The way you said that was the way all slightly embarrassed of their parents' children say it.
Yeah, I kind of thought I grew out of the slight embarrassment.
Oh no. I seem to have a vast, maybe infinite reservoir of embarrassing moments. That. Pretty good one, yeah. Well, we had a pretty busy and pretty interesting episode of Survivor this week. Just yesterday, look at us getting right on to the commentary. I don't know how much recapping we need. There was the requisite fallout from the last episode's Blindside. There was Yellow Sophie's attempt to apologize and smooth the waters over, and that might have worked with any other player, maybe, except Sage, who apparently has just an epic capacity to hold grudges. And
Infinite.
and held it right to the end of this episode. We had Steven's glow up this episode, which was a really wonderful, I thought. The whole thing was just sort of wonderful. Here's my Geoff on Geoff take early. I'm a little sad that Jeff Probst came out in print saying that he didn't like this challenge as much as the original. Because I guess it was too easy for Steven to win.
It was too easy. Yeah, we can get into that, but I didn't know Jeff said that, but I have the same take. I was watching it and I was like, I don't know why they changed this. It is so much easier this way. No towers fell. But anyways.
I thought it looked cooler, but...
It definitely looked cooler, but it was less fun to watch because... I think we saw one tower tumble, and it wasn't even a high stakes. It wasn't even the tower in the lead. Yeah. I think they misjudged how hard this would be, or they misjudged how much it would make the players rethink the challenge. I feel like they think because everybody's seen it over and over again, they know how to do it now, so it's less interesting to watch, or they don't want to repeat challenges as much, but all they did was make it a lot easier. I don't think it really introduced any new strategic elements besides you can go faster because it's harder for your stack to fall.
Did they have this much time to adjust and fix the stack in the old challenge?
The issue with the old challenge was that they were holding the rope that was attached to the tables, so if they stopped to adjust it too much, I think that they would have accidentally knocked the table over.
Right.
But because this time the rope was just attached to rotation, it wasn't any movement would mess it up. It's just that backwards movement would mess it up, so they could stop and adjust it really carefully top to bottom, and I think that's why this was too easy.
Yeah.
I don't think the rotation itself was the issue. It was kind of fun to watch and it did look cooler.
Yeah.
But I think that just because they could stop and adjust their towers so precisely, it was a lot.
Yeah, I think those micro adjustments along the way stabilized a lot of towers that might have otherwise gone. Well, yeah. That's the least interesting part of the episode, really, in some ways, except that Steven won it after he also went on a really pretty cool, difficult-ish journey. It was certainly difficult for him. It looked difficult. You had to run around an island. I think I would have forgotten the numbers. And I didn't...
You know what I was wondering?
Yeah.
Was whether he could use mud or something to write them down on his arm. I don't know if that is something he was allowed to do. I don't know if it would have taken too much time to figure out the right way to do it where he didn't sweat the numbers off. But I just was watching him run around and was thinking that. I think I probably could remember those 6 numbers, but I think I would also have really liked to have the insurance of not having to just remember them in my head. And I was like, I wonder if he'd be allowed to do that. But
Certainly, when he got to the beach, he could have just written them down really fast instead of repeating them. I
yeah.
also misunderstood the challenge, and I was making it harder. Again, this is the least interesting part of the episode. I didn't know that the numbers were in order. I thought that you just got six numbers that could have occurred in any order. So when he got them right on the first try, I was like, oh, well, that's not so hard. You just got to,
Yeah, I also thought that it might be like any order, and I was like, that's really tense. You've got to leave a lot of time at the
yeah,
end for that, and then you've got to remember them when you're putting them in different orders. That
yeah.
sounds really hard, but
Keeping
it was
track of
not.
six figure combination permutations, that seems almost impossible. But
Yeah. It did remind me of the most niche Survivor challenge that I absolutely love, which was from Tocantins. Do you remember when Stephen Fishback won a challenge because they had to run through an obstacle course to find numbers and memorize them and then come back and like write down the right numbers basically, and it was like a pretty long, it was maybe like a sequence of like 9 or 10, and everybody kept going through the obstacle course and then coming back and writing them down, and they like kept going back and forth, and Stephen Fishback went through this obstacle course so slowly, and he got to the end and he just memorized all of them at once and then came back and did it in one go because he like remembered all of the numbers. And I think about that. I don't know why I think about that so much, but I think about that a lot. Like, I love that he just won that challenge by being able to memorize like a 9 or 10 digit sequence.
that's so fishback.
That's like very Fishback, yeah.
Actually, it is. Well, anyway,
And
Steven's narration
Steven,
of that challenge was really great, and I liked the glimpse that we got into him of his imposter syndrome and how much he felt like he had to prove. It speaks a little bit to the edit again, and I think we should talk about that maybe next. Which is that again, here's another pretty interesting person that we get glimpses of, but so little backstory and so few confessionals, strategy confessionals, really, that it just seems like the edit is almost preordaining him as somebody that's going to go out before the final four. I don't
I
know if that's
know,
true, but it
but it
made,
seems like it, at least before the final three, because I just don't. I feel like we've gotten like a decent amount of him, like more than we did a lot of the original tribe that he was on. But like, I think that part of that is just because he was genuinely pretty central to that tribe. Like, I think he has played a pretty strong game, and
yeah.
clearly everybody sees him as a threat, but we just aren't seeing. Like, he's really faded a bit from the game and from the edit, and I feel like we aren't seeing a ton of him. And yeah, like, I don't feel like I know a ton about him besides the fact that he's a rocket scientist. Although I think that that might a little bit be because that's maybe most of his personality. Like
I
when
don't
he
know.
said to Chuck when a kangaroo metaphor or a science or a space metaphor, like he didn't know any kangaroo metaphors, you know, like he's just like Alex. They both can only talk in terms of their jobs.
Well, yeah, maybe so.
But
He also
I think he
speaks the
probably
language
did.
of what?
I know. I just think he probably did have other things to talk about and other parts of his personality that just haven't made the edit as much, and I think that's too bad.
Well, he came back with a super good advantage.
Yeah.
Although
Well,
I don't think it's the best advantage, but it's good.
no, I think it's kind of a bad advantage, but I think he did the right thing with it. I think he
Yeah.
crushed. He seemed like he was like afraid that he hadn't really thought it through very well, but I thought he did the perfect thing.
Yeah, me too.
He came back and said, I did this challenge. This is how it went. I finished it. I got an advantage. And then he stopped talking.
Yeah,
And like, nobody asked him what the advantage was because that would be crazy. And they all just filled it in with the thing they were most afraid of,
right.
which I think was like, I think if he had even just picked something specific that was more powerful than what he got, which was just a block a vote, which is like, I think one of the, like the block a vote and the extra vote can be really useful in the right circumstance. Like Savannah used her extra vote really well, but I think they're not that powerful in the game. But I think he made it much more powerful by convincing everybody without doing any lying that it was a lot scarier than it was.
Well, when you're down to 6 and it's pretty much a 3-3 split, blocking a vote on that 3 side seems like a really, it's not as good as a steal a vote.
Right, which is what Rizzo thinks it
I
is,
know.
and told Stephen he thought it was, and
Yes.
Stephen was like, I don't
Steven
know.
had a pretty good poker face, I thought, through that.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. Maybe I do. Maybe I don't. And then Riz, of course, outguesses himself, you know,
Yeah.
and talks himself into the worst case scenario. But I think it was that's the kind of advantage you put into the game late because it can have the most impact. That advantage early has less impact. I was just reminded of sometimes it frustrates me when seemingly out of nowhere advantages and challenges crop up and totally tip the narrative flow of the game on its head. But this time, at least, I was really grateful for it. I don't know.
Yeah.
It led to it led to some much more interesting and unpredictable negotiation, although not really, because everybody seemed to lock in. In fact, I don't think we've had a unanimous vote out this season, have we?
I mean, since the merge.
Since the
Before the
merge.
merge, everything was a unanimous
Yeah.
vote out. Since the merge, no, because I think they were right that Sophie with an E was the only person who's always been on the right side of the vote at this
Oh yeah.
stage. So I think every vote has at least blindsided someone. Besides, I think the Alex vote was like more unanimous, but I think Christina and Steven still voted with Alex, so
Yeah.
it wasn't like quite there.
I was a little surprised by that, but
The fact that it was unanimous.
yeah, just a little. But the fact that they did actually get Christina and Stephen on board for that vote made me lifted an eyebrow for me. Alas, poor Yellow Sophie, my pick for the winner. We hardly knew ye. And you were talking to me before this started about the edit, and you have some thoughts about it.
Yeah, well, I just think it's a little like I think I would have been more surprised maybe that she went home at this stage if we had seen more of her throughout the whole show. And I think I would have been more invested. Like, I really like Yellow Sophie at this point, but part of why I like her, I think, is because I feel defensive of her because she wasn't in the first half of the season. I think they just excluded her from almost the entire pre-merge narrative, and then all of a sudden we hit the merge and everyone was talking about what a big threat she was, but we just didn't have context for that. So we kind of knew she was a threat. We didn't really understand why. So in this episode, when everyone then was ready to unanimously vote her out, I think it was like not surprising in an exciting wow, a big player went home way, but kind of confusing and like a I like, are you sure you want to put all your votes on Sophie with an E right now when there are actual big threats like sitting here vulnerable?
And
But I think if we had been given a different edit, like if we had been given more of her earlier on, if we saw what exactly it was that was making all of them see her as a threat, and maybe it was hard to see. Like I think one thing that Juan I think said in an interview was that everybody saw her as a big threat and sort of felt like distanced from her in part because of how much and how sort of confidently she spoke at like mat chats, like before challenges,
oh,
which I thought was really interesting and might be kind of difficult to and sort of meta to incorporate in the edit. Like I think if everybody sees someone as a threat because they're maybe like afraid they're gonna get more TV time and they like see them as like the star of the season. Like that's kind of what she got a lot of map chat time says to me is that like everybody else is seeing her as like a potential star and that's why they want to take her out. Like that's probably harder to incorporate in the edit and they maybe talk about it to the producers in those confessionals a little bit less. That's sort of my guess. But I think there must have been enough content about them seeing her as a threat because of how strong she was in challenges and because she's kind of an intimidating and outspoken but likable person. Like I think the edit has just been so favorable to Rizzo and Savannah. Like, I've never really believed they were in danger. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, at this stage in the game, I finally am kind of starting to believe it because I think they've sort of made their impact. And, like, I just can't believe that they're both going to make it to the final three, although maybe one of them will. But I think that, like, because they got so much of a portion of the edit, I just feel like I haven't been super surprised by a lot of the vote outs, even though I should have been, because they've been on the bottom and they've been in really impossible situations. I felt less like shocked and more like in disbelief, which is like a less fun emotion to be in when you're watching Survivor. Like, I think I'm just like, how are they not voting these two out? Like, how do they keep getting away with it? And if it was a more balanced edit, I might be going like, wow, I can't believe they got away with it. That's amazing. You know? So I just think the edit has been unbalanced in a way that has made it like I'm glad we're getting so much of them. They're really fun and I really like watching them. But I do wish we had gotten a little more of Steven, a little more of Sophie with an E, honestly, a little more of Alex.
Yeah.
Just like I think that all of those vote outs would have made more sense to me had I
Yeah.
understood a little more like why those players were threats and were like interesting and compelling. I don't know.
I totally agree with you. And it occurs to me that's a really interesting point that the perception of the players was that she was kind of exuding a star power charisma. So they were always looking to take her out. But my perception of her without seeing the Matt chat impact was just how isolated she was as a player. I never saw her really click with a partner. I never saw her part of an alliance, even really. That she was at the bottom of the Yellow Alliance, and I never quite understood why. So, but I thought that's a if you edit that differently, that's a fascinating story. That this player that has been really playing solo made it to 7. You know,
Yeah.
that's pretty amazing. I Yeah. So yeah, I agree with you, and I wonder if our knowing that Riz and Savannah are going to be on 50 isn't
Rumored.
also
Allegedly.
allegedly. You're right. Maybe that's not really going to happen, but it seems like it's going to happen. And I feel like they might be on there because they were powerfully interesting and charismatic players who didn't win, but made it pretty deep in the game, which they have. And I really, it's been quite a while since I've seen players bluff their way through so many tribals, from the bottom. I don't understand how it happens either. And I don't think Riz is that good of a salesman, to be honest with you.
No, although he might. Like, I do think, and I'm sure part of it's the edit and part of it's other players making bad decisions, but I think he just must, at least a little bit, be making compelling cases. And I think doing a really good job of picking players who can be a common enemy. Like, he did it with Alex, he did it this episode with Sophie with an E.
Yeah.
Like, I think part of why Christina and Steven ended up voting for Sophie as well, why it was unanimous, was because Rizzo did a pretty good job of selling them, and Steven was willing to hold on to his advantage until next week. I don't know if that was a smart decision for Steven and Christina, although I think there's not a ton they could have done about it. But I just think that like Sophie with an E was closer to being a number for them than Savannah is. Like, I think
Yeah.
Savannah is diametrically opposed to Christina. Clearly, that was uncomfortable at tribal council. They do not like each other,
Oh,
or Christina does not like
Savannah and Christina.
yeah, but they're clearly never going to work together. I think that Steven is still Savannah's next target. So I just think that they should have maybe tried a little harder this episode. Like,
Yeah.
it feels like it was potentially kind of a pivot point, unless they really thought that, like, which I think is possible. There's no way that Savannah, Rizzo, and Soph are going to continue to work together, so we can pull one of them in to vote another one out, which I think is fair. But I think everybody's holding on to advantages this season, and I guess it's working for at least some of them. But I just think you can't like hold on to it forever. Like I think we've had a lot of people hold on to idols until the final five, and then just sort of play it into oblivion just to say that they did, and it doesn't do anything. You know, like I
Right.
think I think everybody loves to hold on to things because they think that this like big dramatic moment is going to come. But like this episode honestly might have been the right moment for Steven to try to flip things. And I don't know. I think he still played it kind of cautious this week.
I agree. In fact, I think I think Sage and Jawan's downfall was a kind of timidity, sort of. Like I think they played it safe too many tribals um, when they should have been taken out their opposite number. They could have been in charge of the rest of the game, I think, if they had done the right moves early on.
Yeah.
But
I agree that they could have been in charge. And it might not have been timidity. It might have been that they were just like overthinking.
yeah,
Like it might have been that they were like, we should vote Savannah out. She's the biggest threat. Savannah gets immunity. The obvious next choice is Rizzo, but maybe they're like just like doing this sort of mental gymnastics. Like, well, the obvious vote is Rizzo, so if we vote Alex out, Alex is sort of a subtle threat, so maybe that's a bigger move. Like, I feel like they might have just been timid and playing it safe, or I think they might have a little bit just been sort of like out thinking themselves.
part of me thought that maybe both Juwan and Sage, in very different ways, were too reactive and too emotional in their reactions. Juwan would get
Yeah.
thrown pretty hard when he learned that somebody was throwing his name around. And,
Yeah.
and it changed his voting thinking quite a few times. And I think this episode is a classic example of Sage's temper, I guess, or thirst for vengeance, or I don't know what to call it really, but she was. I thought until the end, when I saw how that went with Tribal, that she was really working against her best interests to vote out somebody on a grudge rather than vote out the biggest threat in the game. But that played so well with the jury.
Yeah.
It was clearly, um, it reminded me that these players are now or should be doing some jury management, especially with the odd, jury trends that we've been talking about. There's a lot of management to do. And
Yeah.
I guess Rizzo's perception of how his speech went over is accurate. He thought it killed. I, I,
I
I
don't.
didn't see it, but I do understand now why he did it on a strategy level, which was sort of to uh, flush the other idol out. You know?
Yeah, well, which was interesting because Christina played hers first.
Yeah,
I thought it was funny that he said that, and I thought it was funny, like, he clearly had this plan in his
yeah,
head. Oh, I'm gonna play a fake idol. She's gonna then play her real idol. It's gonna be revealed that mine's fake. That's gonna look really cool. And then
right.
she played hers without him having to do anything, but then it was still in his head
Yeah,
that he was gonna do this fake idol speech, and he, like, couldn't leave without doing the speech. And I think I'm not sure the jury liked that, and I think he seemed in confessional a little embarrassed that he still gave the speech anyways. Like I think
yeah,
the way he
maybe.
was like, "Well, I wasn't planning on doing it. Like I did have a strategic reason behind it, and it was nice to know that he did because it felt out of character for him to just like throw something at the wall that was totally unstrategic.
Yeah,
Like I think he is a pretty logical player generally, but yeah, I think he probably should have just put the fake idol back in his pocket and moved on with his life. But
yeah,
like that speech was just sitting up there and he couldn't let it go.
yeah, yeah. Well, if you look at it in another way, sure, Sage could have uh, done, could have rallied for Savannah, and I bet could have swayed Stephen and Christina with at least one of the Sophies into doing that this time, and it would have been over. But I'm not sure that she would have been in a better place in the game. I think
No.
maybe a little worse because the drama of the revenge vote wouldn't have had any impact if it waited another tribal.
Yeah.
This was clearly,
No.
and I had no idea that Joanne felt so betrayed.
I know. I was really surprised by his reaction. She kept saying during the episode, like, I'm doing this as revenge for Joanne. But then when she was pressed, she said, like, what about me? Like, when she and Sophie were talking,
Yeah,
at first she was like, I'm upset for Joanne. And then Sophie was, like, trying to sort of, like, mollify that. And then she said, well, this isn't really about Joanne. What about me? My game is ruined, which
yeah,
is, such an emotional and sort of irrational response, in my opinion. Like, if everyone on Survivor who got blindsided responded, well, you ruined my game, like, I just think that's like maybe how you feel inside, but like, I don't think you should like be upset with other people for doing something that they thought benefited their game but ruined your game. Like, that's Survivor. Like, I just think that she gets really personally hurt by people not prioritizing her own game.
yeah.
Like I think she's kind of like, it's a little bit, I think, immature. Like, I think it's a little bit like me playing Risk as a kid and wanting to flip the board because everybody wasn't like catering to 7-year-old me. Like, I don't know. But I kind of agree with you. I thought this whole episode that she was kind of doing something against her own benefit, because I thought that it would make more sense and like the jury would be more impressed by her managing to finally get Savannah out. But yeah, I was wrong. Like, based on the jury's reactions, they were really impressed and they credited her with the
Yeah.
Sophie vote out. And I think that that's the main thing, in my opinion, for Sage. If she wants to win this whole season, I think what she needs to do at this stage is really be able to prove to people that she was strategic and she was making intentional decisions and she was like leading the vote the way she wanted. Because I think that a lot of people at the end will try to argue and maybe be right that like Rizzo and Savannah were manipulating her into voting out the wrong people. And I think what she's going to need to be able to do is point to things and be like, I wanted this person gone for this reason, and then they were. And that was because of me. It wasn't
Right.
because I was manipulated by someone else. And I think that based on this vote, Sophie was kind of the best person for everyone to clearly think, like, yeah, Sage wanted that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I do think, like, I think that she um, has purely revenge based intentions. Like, she's playing a very emotionally intentional, like, her intentions are very emotional in this game, but she continues to play very strategically.
Yeah.
Like she continues to make strategic moves to get out the people that she feels emotionally hurt by, which is like fascinating for me to watch.
Yeah, it is. I think you just put together the things that I've been having trouble reconciling. Like in her confessionals, she seems so emotional, driven by malice, revenge. I don't know. Yeah, that might be overstating it, but she's she. That's where she talks about being a mean girl. That's where she talks about being a shark,
Yeah.
wolf.
Oh, wolf baby.
Yeah,
Yeah. Shannon was the shark wearing the seal
whatever
face.
that was. Yeah. So, but I was so interested in what she said at Tribal because she didn't unleash any of that. Geoff asked a
Yeah.
question that could have allowed her to talk about revenge and how sweet it was, and instead she backed off very deftly and presented herself as somebody who was pretty moderate, and not driven by a need for revenge. And I don't think she had to. The vote was done. She could have just
Yeah.
she could have just revealed her, if what she presents in confessional is truly her, then she is driven by a kind of what, animus. I mean, like
Yeah.
she's really driven by some emotions that she feels very acutely. But on the tribal speech, she favored a certain kind of logical approach to a vote that could satisfy a couple of different needs. You know, it was much more
Yeah.
strategic speech. So that makes me wonder, like, how much of Sage is performative and how, like in confessionals where we usually think we're getting the true person, maybe that's where she's really performing, or else out of confessional, she's masking really well, what's going on inside of her. And it
And like
serves a
what's
strategic end.
it's interesting though because she's not masking her emotions, and I think she says in confessional, I can't hide an emotion, and she says it to everybody else, and I think it's right, but I think she's channeling it very
Okay.
strategically. Like I think that like those 2 days on the beach, every shot that we saw of Sage after Joanne got voted out, she looked devastated.
Yeah.
Like Sophie was like wanting to talk strategy with her, and she was like, "Do you think you're up to it?" Like
Yeah.
Sage looked like she had just lost a dear, dear
Yeah.
friend. Like she looked devastated. So I think she's showing her emotions pretty clearly, but I think she's channeling it in a way where like on the beach, she is coming across as a little unstable and like wild card and not a huge threat. But in tribal council, where it kind of matters more and where Joanne is then arguing for her on the jury, she is like she's answering questions strategically, and like when it comes to lying to people, she's doing a good job of it.
Yeah.
Like I think that she is very open with her emotions when it benefits her and when it sort of like shields her from becoming a threat. But I think you're right that she is also like I don't think that it's necessarily performative. I just think that she's very good at masking it when she needs to for strategic purposes.
Yeah, maybe so.
Which is just a little ironic given how upset she has been with everyone else who has lied to her at all in this
Oh, I
game.
know. Yeah. I don't want to psychoanalyze a player, and I don't have a license for it, for one thing. I find the psychology complicated. What she's presenting in a way that somebody like, I don't know, um, Stephen or Rizzo even, don't seem to be as complicated in their presentation. I don't know, like the
Yeah.
the, the line between confessional. Well, maybe Rizzo's letting out a little bit more of the Riz God stuff in confessional than he ever does on the beach.
Yeah. And the way Steven narrates himself is kind of fascinating to me. Like, even when he's like feeling emotion, he's like narrating it in a very clear way, which I find sort of funny. Like, when he was sitting on the beach,
Yeah,
like really emotional, he was like, I'm feeling, he was like kind of crying, but he said in sort of a normal sounding voice, I'm feeling very emotional right now. All of my emotions are turned up to 1,000, but I'm not upset. This is so strange. Like, he was sort of like, analyzing and like
yeah,
commenting on his like deep emotion for us. Like I feel like that's always how Steven talks to himself
yeah,
about himself to us. And he's kind of always like same tone in a way.
yeah,
And I find that interesting too. Like you're right, he's much more consistent, like in confessional and in his interactions with other players than like someone like Sage is.
yeah.
But I do find all of them a little bit psychologically interesting.
I do too, actually. Now that I think about it, all of them really do have nuance and facets, uh, and maybe that's coming through despite the edit, which seems to give us a lot more information about. I would say three players,
Yeah,
Sage, Rizzo, and Savannah, seem to be
I
getting
think Sophie without any,
a little bit
I think is getting. I guess we don't know as much about her as like a person,
right.
but I think we get a lot of her.
We are
Like I think
getting,
she is like
yeah.
she's a major narrator of this season and like has been since the beginning.
There you go. That's true. Yeah, right from the start.
Um
Yeah,
and yeah, I agree it's been skewed towards those four like the whole season.
yeah.
And say what you will about Sage, but I do think she's a good survivor player. Um
I wasn't sure
I
at
think she
first, but I am now.
like I think that I still think she made big mistakes and should have voted out Rizzo or at least flushed his idol a long time ago,
Yeah,
and I think that like was a mistake, but I do think she's like I think she's doing something right. And I think that one thing that I think is interesting about her is that the people she really doesn't want to play with are the people that don't respect her game.
Yes.
Like, I think a lot of her pride and a lot of like these revenge decisions actually rest mostly on people that she think don't respect her as a strategist.
Right.
And I think that a little bit when Sophie turned on her, that she thought was like Sophie not respecting her as a strategist. And I think it was the opposite, probably. Or maybe she was kind of offended that they voted Joanne out but not her. I don't know. But I think that they should respect her more as a strategist, and I get why that is influencing her decisions so much, but I think that it is sort of a downfall for her. Like, I think that she's not quite bothered by the right things, and she's not made a lot of the right decisions, but I do think she's made it far in the game and deserves credit for a lot of what she's done.
I agree. And I think that some of that points to Yellow Sophie's biggest flaw. If you're going to betray two people that openly, because there was no disputing the vote and who was the swing vote,
Yeah.
you really do need backup. You do need an alliance, or at least
Yeah.
you need to read the people that you're betraying to know how personally they're going to take it. And she
Yeah.
didn't have any backup. She's vulnerable now because she's still alone, but now she's pissed off quite a few people that are important. And
Yeah.
she doesn't understand them.
Yeah.
All of those things made me wish that she had voted the other way and stayed with that yellow majority and Sage and Jawan and found another way to the end by, in part, being the swing vote and taking out Savannah or Riz would be big on your resume. They would have still been
Yeah.
running for her, but she would have been in a more powerful position.
Yeah. I think I definitely made a big talk about thinking she made the right decision last episode, and clearly I was at least a little bit wrong, but I do think she was in a bit of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. Like, I think that even if she had stuck with the old Yellow Alliance and voted out Savannah last episode, I think she still might have been the one who was voted out this episode. Like, I think that Sage, Jawan, Steve and Christina alliance like had no attachment to her, and once Savannah was gone, I don't think their eyes really would have been on Rizzo or Soph that much. So I think she like would have been, in my eyes, the next obvious target, especially since they still saw her as this big challenge threat. And the other big challenge threat at that point would have been gone. So I think like I don't know, you can say like she made the wrong decision, but it's like impossible to know without seeing what would have happened had
Yeah.
she made the opposite decision. And I think she got screwed by Steven's success because everybody was happy to just vote out Steven this time. And I think if she had skated through this vote
Yes.
at 7, people might have decided they had bigger fish to fry at 6. Like, I think that people really might have said, we have to get Rizzo or Savannah out now, or else they're going to make it to the end. Like, I think people could have been doing that math. So I think that, like, in another circumstance, that decision might have worked out better for her. But I totally agree that I think she way misjudged Sage because I thought this decision would have worked out well for her because she then could have chosen either the trio or she could have gone back to working with Steven and Christina because they didn't have any other options. But I misjudged that Sage would be willing to work with Savannah just to get revenge on Sophie. And I should have known that. Like, we know Sage at this point. And Sophie knew Sage at this point and just, I think, didn't quite see how irrationally vengeful she would have been.
Yeah.
So yeah,
You use the
R.I.P.
word irrational around her a lot. That's interesting.
Well, it's just because, like, I think that the people she wants to vote out aren't the logical decisions. Like, I
Okay.
think if I was sitting there saying who's the strategic person for her to vote out,
Right.
like, it's almost never the person that she voted out. I mean, I think sometimes maybe that's not true though, because she's made it this far, and because I think, for example, Shannon, she had like a huge level of hatred for Shannon, but I do think that was absolutely the right strategic decision for her.
That's true.
It has clearly worked out really well in her favor.
I,
So
I think you pegged her perfectly earlier this podcast when you said that she is somebody that channels her emotional responses to things very strategically. So
Yeah.
she is driven by emotions that may not, uh, that her decisions about who to vote out may not be, may be driven more by emotions than like strategy, game strategy, or logic strategy, or whatever. But they're still strategically the right move. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
No, yeah. I think
there's a
that's
kind
right.
of there's a kind of she's not. I thought at first that she was like a Carolyn, like that chaotic sort of emotional player, but she's not that. She's something else.
I mean, I think Carolyn was also very strategic and actually did sort of like not let revenge and emotion dictate who she wanted to vote out every time.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll have to go back and watch that season.
You should watch that season. Nobody thought she was playing strategically, but she really was. And
Yeah.
she was in ways that I think like Sage is going about things strategically, but her ultimate motivation seems emotional to me. But I think Carolyn's ultimate motivation actually seemed more strategic to me on that season than emotional.
I'm
And I think the jury didn't believe that on her season, which was a
right.
shame. But I think it was like I think that at heart she was a strategic player, and I think at heart Sage is very strategic about playing with her emotions. I don't
Okay,
know. I don't know. Maybe we
that's
should
cool.
watch till the end of the season before we like make final judgments on Sage.
Exactly. I now think we've got, well, we before this episode sank in, at first I thought Blue Sophie made a mistake, that she should have made her big move this episode. But I think that she was smart two or three ways. One was reading the room. Even if she had played her advantage and tried to make that vote happen, it was an overwhelming, unanimous vote. It wouldn't have worked. Not with the sage pressure pushing, but also that unless something happens in the next episode that changes the advantage structures, she's got a much better chance of making the big move next episode. I think
Yeah.
combined with Steven's advantage, it seems almost impossible not to steal Riz's idol, block one of the votes, and then vote out Savannah, probably. Um, so waiting until 6 was pretty good. Then it's down to 5, and the power duo is gone, and you've betrayed your core alliance that she feels really comfortable with, and it must be tempting to just go to 3 with them if you could.
Yeah.
But I think that's the move to make. And when it's 5, I don't think she's going to be that vulnerable. I don't
Well,
think.
she has an idol. Like I think that in
Yeah,
this scenario, she
right.
has an idol at 5, so she's not vulnerable at all.
Oh, right. She plays the idol she's in. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And then it's just a matter of like at that stage, is there any chance that anyone's going to just take her to the final 3? I don't know, but maybe she wins the immunity, maybe she wins fire. Like,
yeah,
that's still a better chance than not having made any big moves yourself and
yeah.
then sitting at the final 3 with Savannah and Rizzo, which I think is one of her other options.
If you make your big move now, you just got one very pissed off former ally and 4 other people that would be happy to send you home. Even if you had the idol, you'd play it now, and then next episode, what would you do? So kudos to Blue Sophie for having the patience to wait. If she plays
Yeah,
next time, which she's got to, right? Isn't it?
I really hope so. As a viewer this episode, I so badly wanted her to flip on Savannah because
Yeah,
it would have been more fun to watch. And I think especially because of the edit, like,
yeah,
I was kind of rooting for Sophie with an E because I wanted to see more of her, and I didn't really understand why she would be a
yeah.
bigger threat than Savannah. Um, but upon reflection, yeah, I think that Blue Sophie definitely made the right decision holding on to that. I think that it would have been a similar effect had she done it at 7 or at 6. but now she has one fewer week to like get through after she makes a really big move. And then it's just a question of like at 6, is she gonna do it? Like, are we finally gonna see Sophie make a really big move and flip on Savannah and Rizzo and play the knowledge is power correctly? I don't know, because she could also play the knowledge is power on Steven's advantage, take the block vote, really dig in with Savannah and Rizzo. But I just
Oh,
think that nobody on the jury will think that that was a good decision. And I think, like, if she sticks with Rizzo and Savannah and then one of them goes home at 5, it is true that at 4, Sophie probably makes it into the final 3, and then like Savannah and I don't know, Steven go to fire against each other. Like I think that like Sophie probably has a better chance of making it to the final 3 if she sticks with Rizzo and Savannah, but I just don't see how she could beat either of them at the end.
right.
And even could beat like Sage at the end, having stuck. Like, people do not like it when someone just sticks to a power alliance and
Yeah,
doesn't like cause any of like can't obviously be seen as the person who is driving the force of that power alliance.
yeah, I agree. I really hope it happens. We could we, we could talk about the um, we could talk about the previews because they weigh into this. What did you think was being foreshadowed?
Okay, what it seemed to me, and I could be totally wrong, but like we see them all on the mat having really strong reactions to something.
Oh,
I
yeah.
guess maybe it's the loved ones' letters, and some like what I read into it is that it's the loved ones' letters, and somebody wins the challenge and picks someone controversial to come on the reward with them,
Hmm.
and everyone else is devastated and furious and like vengeful. Like, that's kind of what that preview is giving to me.
Hmm.
I don't know who was doing what, besides that Steven was like, this might be their final, like their last supper, right? That's what Steven said. So I think
Okay.
Steven's not the person who's making the decision in that case. But like
Okay.
the shocked and emotional reactions on the mat, I think probably seemed bigger in the next time on, and it probably won't be as like integral a plot point. But it was giving a little bit of like when Q didn't pick Liz and then she had the Applebee's meltdown. Like, it was very much given like
Okay.
really bitter reactions to a reward choice. Or like
Oh,
even when like same season when Charlie didn't pick Maria for the loved one letters,
yeah,
even though they have made a pact not to pick each other, which is a really smart thing to do if
I
you're
agree.
close number twos, I think. But she was still furious and wanted to vote him out. So I think the loved one letter, we haven't gotten it yet, and it is very contentious. So
Okay.
that's my theory. I don't know how much it's actually going to play into the strategy, and I didn't get much about strategy outside of that from the next time on. Did you?
Well, I mean, the we had sort of dueling power gloats. By the way, this is the season of poor winners. I'm
Yeah.
so tired of winners gloating so openly when they vote somebody out. It's just bad form, I think, but also bad jury management, man. But
Yeah.
whatever.
Although, um, it's been so funny because you're right. Like, everyone's been a really sore winner, but everyone who gets voted out is like, "Oh, it's good. You guys got me."
Yeah, they're like,
Like,
oh,
it's
you
a
got
weird
me.
dynamic.
I don't know.
Like when Sage voted Shannon out, and she was like, "It's all love," and Sage was like, "I'm not hugging you." Like, it just feels like the dynamic is really reversed this season, where the strong sort of negative reactions are from the people who did the voting out.
I know. I don't know. I don't know. It just rubs me the wrong way, but maybe that's just old fashioned. But like Rizzo's, so there was a little shot of Rizzo making the L, the loser sign, that
Yeah.
however that would work. And I thought that was classically bad form, gloating Rizzo. But then I wondered, like, why is he doing that? Like, nothing has changed for the three of them that he knows of. So my worry is that there's still another idol out there. One of them,
Yeah.
three, is going to find it, and they're going to feel like they can give an idol to Savannah, an idol to Riz, and rule the game, right? Because they don't know the other advantages even going on in the game.
Yeah.
Um, so I didn't know how to read that little moment. Like, I probably nothing, but it does worry me that there's still an idol out there. And Rizzo does seem like the kind of person that would find the idol. I don't know. Some people just seem destined to get lucky. And
If Sophie steals one idol and then he whips out the other idol, like he'll be. If he makes it to the final three, you have to win after that. Like, oh, it's okay, I've got a
well,
backup.
Sophie will still have an idol. So
Yeah. No, I mean, no matter what, if Sophie plays her knowledge as power on Rizzo, she still gets a really good advantage in the game.
yes,
Like, that could only be good for her and only look good for the jury. It's just, yeah, that last idol that's out there is kind of tricky. Like, I don't know who, if anyone's gonna end up with it. I feel like we haven't really seen in the edit anyone talking about it or looking for it. But it feels like it would be all I could think about if I were one of them.
I was so surprised nobody seemed to be looking for it this episode.
Yeah.
Maybe we just didn't get those shots, but
Probably it didn't play into like the narrative structure of this episode, so we'll
yeah,
see about next episode.
yeah. And then, Stephen, though, was very sure that he was going to use that advantage and finally make the big move. So, but I would think that too if I was him.
Yeah.
I don't know how they can, I don't know how that three of Rizzo, Savannah, and Soph can overcome a block a vote when it's 3-3.
I think like successful idol play is all they need to do. Um because someone can block one of their votes, but they don't have enough people to split the vote if it's 3-3. So it'll be 3-2. And as long as
Okay.
Rizzo and Savannah and Soph, if the three of them stick together, correctly pick who to play the idol on, um, then they win. It doesn't matter about the block of vote.
Do you think that they could recruit Sage to their group and make it 4-on-2?
Maybe. I think Sage is kind of up in the air. I mean, I do think whether Sage is motivated by revenge or by strategy, it would be foolish of her not to finally vote out Savannah or Rizzo. Like, I think Sage stands a better chance in the end next to Christina and Steven at this point than she does
Yeah,
against Savannah or Rizzo.
yeah, for sure.
Um, I do think it would be wise for Sage to try to work with Sophie. Like, I think that they make sense to me as because there are sort of two other duos.
Yeah,
So I feel like if the two of them figure out how to work together,
feel
that could go well for
yeah.
them.
They've been talking a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, and it seems like Sophie B does have respect for Sage's game and Sage
yes,
sees that. Like I get that sort of mutual respect from them.
yeah,
And I think that speaks to Sophie B's read on Sage, like that she is playing strategically and wants to be seen as playing strategically. Or just like, I don't know, maybe it's just common sense. Like everybody wants to be respected. Like,
yeah.
why would you ever treat someone like you don't think they're playing strategically
I
so
know,
blatantly?
I know. I don't understand. It must be really tough to keep a clear head when you're out there this late in the game,
Yeah. No, I mean,
and
of course.
you're not well rested, and you're just not reading people very well, or else you just sort of lost sight of common courtesy, or whatever.
Yeah.
Of course, I respect.
Yeah, I think courtesy is a little out the window on this season, in
I
my
know
opinion.
it's been a pretty
Uh,
uncivil season. So was last season, though, in a lot of ways. You know,
Last season
I mean, there was some
was,
great, beautiful bonding, but there was also a lot of sniping.
I don't know, they were pretty like kumbaya in a lot of ways.
No, I don't know.
I guess it depends on like who and when you're thinking about, but I think that this season has had much more sort of pettiness and revenge than last season did.
Well, I totally agree with that. So, yeah, well, I'm really looking forward to next episode. So often at this point in the game, I feel in my bones so certain that this player needs to do this, and they will make their game, and then so often they just choke. They don't do it. They for
Yeah.
some reason they don't. And I'm really hoping that Soph just does it, goes for it.
Yeah.
She feels like the player that would. From the start,
I
she's
know.
been like trying to steal advantages, idols. She tried to steal the idol. That's the player that's in her first confessional said, I'm ready to backstab. I'm
You're
eager
right.
to do it. I feel like she should be the player that can do it. I
Yeah,
hope she
she
is.
tried to steal the idol, but in a much more subtle way than Savannah tried to
Oh,
steal
yeah.
it, which I do think speaks to their games. Like, I
Yes.
think that Sophie B is as cutthroat as Savannah, but in a much quieter and friendlier way.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. Well,
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
there's too many uh, there's too many permutations to figure out who's going to be in the final three right now for me. But I
Yeah,
really hope Blue Sophie is there.
my prediction as of the final seven was Sage, Blue Sophie, and Christina.
Okay.
But I still kind of stick with that, but more and more it's seeming likely that Rizzo or Savannah will actually make it there.
It seems like it's possible, but only if they get really lucky at this next vote. It would be so much easier for Soph to steal Rizzo's idol. They vote out Savannah. The next vote, Rizzo's outnumbered in a big way. He just gets voted out. Then it's the four. That's four.
Yeah.
That would be
Yeah.
the way I would think it would go.
No, but if Soph sticks with them, I think one of the two of them at least makes it to four. So it's just kind of to
Okay.
me a matter of Soph's just and if Soph sticks with them and they play the idol successfully this vote, which I think they can do if Soph sticks with them in a way where she then convinces the other side that she's working with them, which I think she can do.
Maybe Rizzo.
So I don't know.
Maybe Rizzo gloats so much because Sophie finally told him that she has that advantage, and he's sure they can steal Steven's advantage, and that's how it's going to shake out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because if she just steals it and they block like Steven's vote, then
Yeah,
that they don't even need to play the idol, and then he really can play it at five, and then he definitely makes it to four. So I really think it all
yeah,
rests on Sophie.
it does. I feel like if she sticks with those two, her chances of winning are a lot lower. But
They're a lot lower, but
you should know that.
maybe I do think that like if she sticks with them but plays a really instrumental role with this knowledge is power, and then Rizzo or Savannah still goes home at five, and then Rizzo goes home at four. She
Mm,
makes it into the final three, and she doesn't have the worst story.
that's
Um,
true.
so I think like there are two paths for her for me, and I really want her to choose the path that involves playing a cool advantage and backstabbing people who have been really good at the game.
Yeah,
But I maybe that's not the best path. I don't know. We'll see.
it's not the safest path, but I think it's got the
No,
highest. It might be the high
it's
risk, high reward path.
I think that's right. I think she's less likely to make it to the final three in that path, but I think if she does, she's way more likely to win.
There you go. All right. Hey, good wrap up. As
Yeah.
always, you cut right to
Well,
the heart of it.
I will see you next week and
Yeah.
our viewers, hopefully, for
Yes.
the penultimate episode. We're only two away from the finale.
Yes.
Um, Fingers crossed for something exciting happening.
Yeah, I know you've been a little bored this season. I,
I
I
mean,
I was more bored last season.
yeah, of course. Post merge for sure.
Yeah.
Pre merge, way more bored this season, but
Yeah.
post merge is more exciting.
Absolutely. All righty. Well, I'll talk to you next week, and Have a good one. Get some sleep, will you?
Yeah, I'll try.
I
All
love
right.
you.
I love you too,
Bye.
Jimmy.
Good night.
Bye.